Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode number 92 of Mirrorless Minutes. And it looks like I'm rolling solo again. This is crazy. So I've got a special guest on tonight. He'll be on momentarily, I'm assuming. It's Jerry James. And if you're an Olympus shooter,
that won't happen again.
all right. So we've got Jerry on now. Here we go. It's ready to roll. So I was just kind of doing the show intro a second ago, Jerry.
Right.
I was getting ready to tell everybody a little bit about you and who you are. But rather than me tell everybody about you, I'll just let you just say a little bit about yourself, like where you're from, how long you've been shooting, stuff like that. Just a little brief intro.
All right. I'm Jerry James. I'm from Muskegon, and I'm the guy that can't keep Google Chrome open, and I keep getting disconnected from the show. Now I shoot. Hold on, let me get back over to this thing. I'm trying to load the chat. I basically, I travel and I shoot. Mostly Michigan, most of the time. I'm always on the lakeshore. I live right on the lake. I'm like 10 minutes away, so I'm always on the lake, shooting lighthouses, and I'm gonna catch hell for that one, but shooting lighthouses and whatever, man. I mean, I shoot everything. I do portraits. I do composite photography. Astrophotography. I mean, I try to do it all. So
Jerry says he's going to catch a little flack for saying the lighthouse thing. And that's a little inside baseball. I'll clue you guys in on a little bit of that. So we've got this little group of Michigan photographers. We're all Olympus users. You probably know some of them from the show or from Facebook. Mark Miller is one of them. Seth Dimstra. We've got this little chat group going, and we always rib each other about shooting stuff. I get constantly ribbed, for shooting barns all the time because they're like right in my backyard, and Jerry's got lighthouses in his backyard, so we're always ribbing him. If we see a photo of a lighthouse, we're always like, hey, where are you at today? What are you shooting? So,
right.
But if you look at his stream and follow his work, the ribbing obviously is just guys being goofy guys because the work is outstanding. So we're not knocking the work. We're just poking fun at one another.
Right. For sure.
So a little bit more about Jerry. Again, for those of you who don't follow his work, I would say find Jerry on Facebook, find him on Instagram, and I'll share the links to all of Jerry's social accounts here in the show notes at the end of the show for people to go back and follow. And you'll see that his work is extremely diverse. And we're going to go over that in a little bit here when we do our photo share.
Right.
But, like a lot of people that shoot Olympus currently, Jerry wasn't really an Olympus guy when he started off. Jerry, did you start off with Sony or did you start off with
started off, I actually started off with Olympus. I had an Evo.
Yeah.
E10.
Okay.
I borrowed that. That was my buddy's though, but I borrowed it. So I don't even know why he bought the camera because I had it all the time. But I started off with that, and he ended up needing it back for something. So I'm gonna go buy my own. So at that time, the D700 came out.
Okay, yeah.
And so I jumped in. I was shooting Nikon in the beginning, and then I saw mirrorless. And I was like, yo, that's crazy. So I've been shooting mirrorless since they came out pretty much. I went over to Sony. Sony A6000 was the first one that I bought. And then I stepped up to a Sony A7. And I shot that for a year or so, and then I switched over to Olympus.
Yep. So like a lot of people, you actually went from full frame on some of your bodies and then stepped back down to micro four thirds. Right. And so what was that journey like? I know that obviously there's some benefits and drawbacks to either system. Doesn't matter what you're shooting with, but I'm always optimistic, right? So I'd like to focus on the positives. So what are some things that you've seen moving into the Olympus system that you weren't getting in full frame or on the Sony equipment or the Nikon equipment that kind of drew you in? What were you interested in with this?
Live composite was the big one.
Yeah,
I love live composite because I do a lot of astrophotography, and I got no problems laying on the pier for an hour and letting them star trails form.
Yep.
Live composite was a big one for me. I mean, the Sonys had the EVF and they had image stabilization and all that. So the big one for me was the live composite and the live time. I was a little skeptic at first because coming from a lot bigger sensor, I was worried about noise. And that wasn't really that big of an issue. The thing that really, so what I did was I bought because I still had all my Sony gear. So I bought a EM10, the first one off the refurbished store.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was like, I need to try this before I'm all in. So I shot a bunch of pictures with that thing, and I couldn't believe how sharp those images were on that entry-level camera.
Yeah.
If it wouldn't have been for that right there, I don't know if I would have pulled the trigger. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But I saw those images, and I was like, man, all right, I'm sold. So I ended up making the switch. I'm watching the chat. What up, Dave?
So you made the switch, and I can remember that whole process. We did a lot of talking back and forth during that period of time. And I know that there was hesitation. There's always hesitation. You know, you kind of get used to the way a system works. You know where to find things. And but since then, I don't think I've heard you talk about anything other than shooting with the gear you got now, which is pretty.
I'm happy. I mean, the only thing I really wish that we could get, and we talked about this in San Francisco, was a little bit better video.
Mm-hmm.
I would really like 120 frames and slow it down in camera. I would really like that.
Right, yeah.
But other than that, I mean, the image stabilization on that EM1 Mark II is top notch, dude. I was like, wow.
Yeah, I remember. I think that was one of the first things you said when I met up with you in San Francisco was that you were in Muir Woods doing video, and you're like, man, this image stabilization is crazy.
Yeah, we were on the bus, and Eric was telling me about it, and I'm like, come on, man, it ain't that good, man. And then they started all showing me videos they were shot with it. I was like, what? Because I was actually thinking about buying a Ronin.
Yeah.
And then they showed me that video, and I was like, wow, I could probably save $1,000 and not buy a Ronin by just getting this camera.
Right, exactly. You know, it's funny too. And I feel bad about this, but back there on the floor, there's a
Osmo. Is that an Osmo? No, that's the crane.
No, it's not even the crane. It's from ICANN. It's their gimbal, and it's big and it's nice. It's beautiful. It's an awesome gimbal, but I'll tell you what, it's a lot of work, you know, and I'm going to send it back to them and tell them, you know, it was great that they sent it and let me play with it. But it's not anything I don't feel like I need because of the image stabilization in the camera.
Right.
You know, and
I need to do a little more playing around, but I'm sold on that, man.
Yeah, I hear you for sure. So, you know, you talked a little bit about your entry into Olympus from another system. Started off with DSLR, made the move to mirrorless with Sony, continued the mirrorless move into Olympus now. And because you're now with Olympus, that kind of opened some doors, you know, for you. Right, I think that probably don't get open for a lot of people, and definitely those doors don't open as much on other systems. You know, Olympus is just incredible with
I will say
with their community.
They care about their customers and their fans. Yeah, for sure.
For sure. I mean, you know, and like you said, you were in San Francisco. You were part of this. Right. I know you didn't want me to use the term. It drives you nuts. It's kind of funny, but the Superfan experience, you know,
right.
You know, where they flew a group of people out to San Francisco, all expenses paid, let you play with gears, wined and dined and toured and all that great stuff. Sure. But in addition to that, you've also recently had a couple of magazine features as well. You want to talk a little bit about that, you know, how those came about, what that experience was like, what it's like to see your stuff in magazines?
That was pretty cool, man. It was like, I mean, it's kind of like, you know how we get when we get like Instagram features and stuff like that. We're like, yeah, this was like times 100. You know what I mean? I went to Barnes and Nobles and bought a magazine that had my pictures in it. You know what I'm saying? So, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So I was like, I mean, that's cool, man. That's a cool feeling. Yep. I was in 2 magazines since January. I see. This is the thing that they were supposed to get back to me and tell me, because I did the interviews in like October.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. So one of them was an email interview and the other one was a phone interview. The phone interview was actually really fun.
Yeah.
But they was like, all right, we'll get back to you when it's ready to happen. And then I'm getting messages on Facebook from people showing me my articles, and I'm like, what the hell? Nobody told me these were out.
Yeah.
So and it was like a month late. So I'm scavenging, trying to find these magazines. And luckily I got 2 of the outdoor photography one. I didn't get a chance to get the other one.
Yeah.
We'll see if I can get that online though.
Yeah, you should be able to find I know there are a lot of services out there where you can get back issues of magazines.
Right.
And it's funny that you mentioned that, because I know I had 2 features in 2 different magazines and I haven't even seen them.
Right.
You do the interviews months in advance. Yeah. And you just kind of kind of have a hard time remembering when are they going to come out and all that stuff. It's weird. But definitely like it's an cool, exciting thing it's to be able to experience. Oh, for sure. Right. You know, to stop and think about, everybody says, print your work. It's great to print your work. Have your work printed out.
Look.
Yeah, right. Right. But to have it printed in magazines that are distributed all across the country, for potentially thousands and thousands of people to see.
It's cool.
It's a really cool experience. And again, probably not possible with most other
for brands, sure. So. Yeah, I mean, I don't see that happening anywhere else.
So the images that you had featured, I know I remember one of them for sure. It was a lighthouse, right?
Both of them were.
Yeah. So and we kind of did a quick review of some of your photos that you're going to share tonight. Mm-hmm. If you have time while we're still talking here, can you queue up one of those in your mix as well? Is that an option? Just so people can kind of get an idea of what you're kind of famous here for. You do all kinds of work, which is great. I mean, I love seeing people that can shoot more than a thing. You know what I mean? Okay. Not knocking people that specialty is great. You become a master at that, but it's great to see somebody who's diverse like you. And I admire that, probably because I feel like I try to be the same way. I try to shoot a variety of things. So,
for sure, man. I mean,
and so while I'm talking you up here and continuing to talk you up, I'm giving you time to kind of queue up one of those images.
I already got one of them. So.
You already have a lighthouse image ready? How is that even possible?
Because I know where I keep my stuff, man.
Yeah. I was going to say because that's all you shoot.
Right.
No.
Oh, I know that's where you was going with that.
So I think what we'll do is once Jerry's got that queued up, we'll probably just jump right into an image share. So you guys can get a peek at what Jerry does. Like I said, his work is great. And when this is over, I really think people should take a minute to check out his social channels and see what he does. Give him a follow on Instagram. His work on Instagram is just stellar. And he's going to show some images tonight too that are part of this series that I've been seeing him working on that is just super cool. And you'll see why. It's just got this feel to it that it's very cinematic to me. And I don't really know how else to describe it. Just cinematic.
You ever seen the movie Deep Cover?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's kind of what inspired me to do those images. If you notice, I do a lot of quoting from that movie.
I guess I wasn't catching that. It's been a long time since I've seen that.
I really like that movie, man. And it just had a mood to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I got the inspiration to do those photos.
Sweet.
So it's pretty cool. Yeah.
So when we do this this photo share, just to give you a heads up, Jerry, I'm going to stop talking. So if I don't respond to your talking, don't think I'm ignoring you or anything like that.
Right.
I'm just muting my mic so that your photos stay 100% on the screen all the time. So whenever you're ready, just go ahead and pull those up and I'll mute myself and I'll let you kind of describe your work and all that. If you can mention what equipment you were using to. People really like to hear that.
All right, hold on. I got to find that folder now. It changed. Now the YouTube thing is there. Oh, where is it?
That's okay. I'll tell you what, because
you know what? Let me just close the chat. I guess I can open that back up later. As long as
don't close the window. You're
right.
Jerry's been pretty good about just disappearing.
Oh, it's gone, dude. Can you add an application? Why is it gone?
Not sure.
Huh.
Do you want to continue working on it and I'll queue up some images real quick? I'll just share mine really quick.
Let me try this. Hold on 1 minute. Bam, there we go.
All right. So Jerry's going to get these going and I'm just going to mute myself and let him go with the show.
All right. So this here, me and Alan, we're kind of at the point now where we're like, we're we got to go somewhere and shoot because we've shot all this stuff to death over here. So what we've been doing every weekend, every other weekend, we've been taking off. And this past weekend, we went to Illinois to Starved Rock State Park. It's about a 4-hour drive, and it's full of canyons and waterfalls. And the water's kind of low right now, which was kind of disappointing because as you can see in this picture here, there's not a whole lot of water coming down this waterfall. But it's kind of cool because you go inside of these rock caverns, whatever you want to call them, and who knows where the water is coming from. But there's little lakes in the bottom of them, and you go down there. It's pretty cool. This is a long exposure I did from inside the canyon. So there was like 5 or 6 of these different ones. There's a few that had some caves in them. So it was a pretty cool place to go hang out and check out. And like I said, it's something different. It's not the same stuff that we're shooting all the time. So that's the plan for the summer, man, is to just travel and shoot. So here's the images we were talking about at night. This is actually my buddy Nick. We were in Grand Rapids when we shot these. So we were just driving down the street and we were looking for buildings that were lit up inside. And we happened to drive past this laundromat. And I was like, yo, look at the name on that thing, dude, sit and spin. And then the lights were on. And so we pulled over and got out. And I was like, put your hat on. And he was already wearing the coat. I'm like, throw that hat on and go stand in the doorway. And so we just stood out there for a little while and snapped some pictures. We went around inside and took pictures inside and across the street. And it was, I really like how this turned out. It turned out pretty cool. This was shot, I believe, with the 12 millimeter, the 12 to 40, 2.8. So this is one of my favorite pictures from the year so far. And then here's another one of the night ones, what we were talking about, that the deep cover inspirational stuff here. It's just a little Mexican restaurant in where is this at? Twin Lake, Halton, somewhere up there. And it was snowing out and cold, and we were riding past, and I saw the lights. I was like, yo, you got to let me out. Look at that reef on the roof. So I jumped out and took a few pictures of it, and I got my own sauce for stuff like this, so I just applied that, and came out pretty cool, I thought. My next one is, so I did this shot for my cousin. More along the lines of horror cinematic, you know what I mean? Something different. It's portrait work. We put fake blood on it, and it was freezing that day too, man. Everybody was cold, but it was fun shoot. We did it in the woods, and I had like a 7-foot softbox in there to try to light up the entire area, and that was a pain in the ass to haul that thing around in the trees and stuff like that. But I thought the pictures came out pretty good. So I think they like this one. And then my last one is one of my portrait shots. I do a lot of portraits. That's probably my favorite thing to do. And this is Lexi, one of the girls I shoot with. We shot this in the library, downtown Muskegon. So I was like, it was cold out, and I was like, let's go in the library and sneak around and do some shooting. So we were sneaking around inside the library, and at first we were all nervous because we were like, I don't know if we're supposed to. I got my light wand with me and my camera, and we're carrying all this gear around in the library. So we sneak upstairs and we're shooting. And then one of the ladies comes up. She's returning books to the shelves. And she saw us up there shooting and didn't say anything. So we went to town, man. We went full blown, did a photo shoot up there. It was pretty fun. And I thought a lot of those images came out really good. And I believe, oh, here's the one this was one of the ones that was in the magazine. This is shot with the 7 to 14 millimeter. It's like, I want to say 55-minute long shot, I believe, or maybe an hour, somewhere around there. And just so happened to be that there was northern lights out there that night. And so I got the star trails and the northern lights in there. And this was one of the shots that was featured in the magazine. So yeah, cool. That is it for my images, and I don't know how to close this, and hopefully I don't leave the show.
Yeah, right.
All right, there we go.
Yeah, so all you got to do is should be a thing at the top of your screen that says stop screen sharing.
Yeah.
There you go. Sweet. It worked. Yeah. So for Dave Bostador was asking, yep, that's Little Sable Point Lighthouse.
Yeah, Little Sable. Yeah,
sure.
that's where I met you guys.
Sure
Remember
is.
that?
Yeah,
Yep.
that's like one of the probably the first exposures to Olympus, maybe was there at least for live composite. I'm sure it was
for sure for the new stuff. Yes, for sure.
Yeah, because I know we were
because you guys were all showing me the live composite stuff on the back of the screen. I'm like, yo, that's bananas. How you can watch this stuff happen? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that same trip, I was told by another person their first time seeing live composite when we were shooting Lightning the night before. I was told I was cheating and that's not really photography. So
right.
Jealousy is an ugly thing. So I'm just going to zip through a few photos really quick just because I'm going to kind of use this as an intro to a write-up I'm going to do. I pitched it to the folks over at Photo Focus, so I think I'm going to be doing a write-up for those guys on infrared photography.
Right. Yeah, thank you for the camera. That's pretty cool.
Took a recent trip to the Smoky Mountains with my family. Well-needed and deserved vacation in my mind. And right before we left, literally the day before, I said, should I take this infrared camera? And I just threw it out on Facebook. I said, hey, should I take this infrared camera with me? And pretty much everybody said yes. The only thing that wasn't a definite yes was, have you reached your gear limit yet? And I'm like, what the heck does that even mean? There's no gear limit. I'm taking whatever. So I took the infrared camera. And for those curious about it, it's an OMD EM1 Mark I that I had converted by a company called LifePixel. The conversion, I don't not remember the cost. I'm sorry. I think it's like about $300. And there are numerous different wavelengths that you can convert to. Infrared is kind of a fairly broad spectrum of wavelengths that it covers. But the one that I chose allows zero color to be exposed. It's 830 nanometers. So they call it their true black or something of that nature because there's zero color to it. And I'll just show you really quick. It's kind of cool. You can actually see that there's something different with this camera than like a standard. So this is my EM5 Mark II. And I'll show you the sensor really quick here. You can see, there's like you can see a little bit of red in there, maybe. You can see the sensor, you can see plain as day what's going on in there. But when you look at an infrared converted camera, it looks black. So this is the filter that goes in place on that. And it's not as dark as what it looks like in the body here. If you've tried infrared photography with a screw-on filter, I think you can get them at like 720 nanometers, which allows in just a little bit of color. But those are like a 10-stop ND filter, maybe even a little bit more. They cut out a lot of light. This one, you only lose about a stop and a half maybe of light. So it slows down your shutter speed a little bit. But for the most part, you can shoot relatively quick with it. So that's just a little bit about the camera and all that and what I took down there. And like I said, I'll just run really quick through these photos and talk just a little bit about them. So the first one here, and the aspect ratio on this is goofy because the first couple of shots I took with the camera, I had it set up and I was shooting IR time lapses with it, and I shot them in 16:9 aspect ratio so that when I would play them back, they were formatted for TV or video, whatever. So I took this first shot and I thought, man, that's pretty narrow. And it's because it's at the 16:9 aspect ratio. And that says a little something about the shot here. In order to get a cropped shot at 16:9 in camera, that means it's the JPEG because RAWs are not cropped in camera. So this is a JPEG straight out of the camera. And all of these images are JPEGs straight out of the camera. That's one of the things about this is that once you set a white balance in your scene, the JPEGs just come out just banging. You really don't have to do anything to them at all. So this was shot in Cades Cove in the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. I recommend to anybody that lives in the good old US of A, visit the Smoky Mountains and especially the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. It is a treasure. It's free to enter that national park, and maybe that's why it's the busiest national park in our country. I don't know. But on this evening with my wife, it felt like we were the only people there. It was just a stunning night there. So just a lone tree out in a field that was bathed in light as the light was kind of breaking through the clouds intermittently. I'm a sucker for a tree in the middle of a field or a barn in the middle of a field. The next shot is looking down one of the lanes. Cades Cove is just basically a loop that runs around this area of the park. And then there are a couple of lanes that kind of bisect the journey around the park. And this one's called Sparks Lane. And it just gives you a shorter trip around the park. And we'd already done the loop once, and we were circling back around, and we just decided we were going to loop around it a couple of times until sunset. And the light was just falling really nice on this lane. I told my wife, I said, we're going to take this road this time because the light down here is great. And she's like totally all about it for me. So she was like, yeah, let's go do it. So we both shot there again, straight out of the camera. This is all these shots actually are with the OMD EM1 Mark I IR converted with the 12-100 on it before I broke that lens on that trip. The next shot is the same thing. This one shot at 100 millimeters though. It's actually about 100 feet up the lane here, stopped and got out and turned and then shot down the range there at 100 millimeters to get this shot. Again, I just liked that we were getting light that was kind of breaking through these patches of clouds and illuminating some of the bare trees in the glade out there. Along this drive, there are, and I'm assuming maybe naively, I don't know, that these cabins and stuff that are there at Cades Cove are the original settlements of the people that were living there at one time. Maybe they're recreations. I don't know. Hopefully they're not, because they look pretty original when you're there. So we stopped and got out and just kind of explored around those. And I decided to throw this cabin into the frame with the split rail fence, which I'm sure has been recreated. But again, just the way the light is kind of kissing along the mountain range out there in the background, I just had to stop and shoot there. Same with this. One of the things with the 830 nanometer wavelength is that the skies, if you have the sun at your back, the blue skies just, they become black. And I'm just a huge sucker for that look. I used to spend a lot of time in post trying to get those shots, but with this camera, they just happen automatically, I guess you could say. So again, every time I had the opportunity to put the sun at my back, which is something you want to do with IR, and get those clouds to really just kind of pop against that black sky. And again, another one, just kind of a zoomed in shot of the big fluffy clouds rolling behind the mountains. And that's it. Nothing super fancy to share per se. I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about infrared photography and just some of the options that it offers you. And like I said, if I end up doing this right up for Photo Focus, I'll of course blast it out there for everybody to check out. But if you're curious about infrared photography, feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to talk about it because it is such a cool way to shoot photos. So that's kind of it for me on that. And it doesn't look like we have too many questions in the chat room at all, which is nice. Bob wanted to know how did my family pry me away from the old barns. Man, it was great. They didn't. They just let me go do my thing. And actually, the barns that I did go out and shoot out in the countryside away from the park, I just went on a solo trip for myself. So it was pretty good. It was a great trip. And I guess that's about it. You know, we're about at the half-hour mark. Can people find you anywhere else, Jerry, other than this show? If you want to go ahead and give a shout out and mention your Instagram tag or name or whatever.
My Facebook page is Jerry James Photography. You can find me on Instagram. I actually have 2 accounts on Instagram. I have my landscape one where all my lighthouses reside. That is Jerry James Photo. And then I have my fun account where I've been posting a lot of all my night stuff I've been taking, and that is Ski Town J.
Okay, and that's SKEETOWNJAY, right?
Yep.
Cool. And like I said, everybody, I'll make sure to have all of Jerry's links posted in the show notes so you guys can follow up on him. He's pretty prolific. He's one of those accounts that you want to follow just because you're always going to see something coming through. And now I'm kind of holding you to the fire on this one. Don't let everybody down.
Oh, right. Man, I shoot almost every day, man. So
yeah, it's funny. You know, last night I'm just kind of winding down for the night, and then Jerry's out shooting a drive-in diner. I'm like, dude, come on. Really? Yeah. You're like relentless, which is good.
There's some days I'll shoot 3 times a day, man. I just got to do it.
David Miller said, review one more time on the conversion to infrared. And I don't know if you are talking about like what I did. If you are, just a little slower because I know I tend to talk fast when I'm excited. The company is called Life Pixel. If you just Google Life Pixel, I think they're in Arizona, maybe. They're here in the United States. You send your camera into them. If you go on their website, they show all these different options for your infrared conversion. And then they list all the cameras that they're capable of converting. And they have a whole bunch of Olympus cameras that they're capable of doing the conversion on, pretty much all of them. And so you go to their website and you choose what spectrum or wavelength that you want your camera converted to. And like I said, they show examples of what the images look like for each wavelength that you're going to choose from. Send it to them. A couple of weeks later, you get your camera back and you're ready to roll. There's no post-processing necessary if you set the white balance in your camera and just use the JPEG. If you don't, the raw files that you get are actually like this, like a pinkish, purplish kind of color. It's really bizarre. But again, as long as you have a white balance set, those raws end up becoming, a beautiful black and white. And here's a tip too. If you already have an infrared converted camera, Silver Effects from Nick is just,
that's the one I
holy
use.
Smokes. And it's killer on color photos converting to black and white. On infrared, it's next level. These ones I didn't convert because I was pretty stoked on the JPEG right out of the camera. All those shots though will eventually probably funnel through Nick one more time just to see what I can juice out of them that way. But again, if anybody's got any questions about any of this, feel free to friend me on Facebook. I'm like a friend freak, I guess. I'm trying to collect all the people. All the people are mine. And add Jerry as a friend. And I put him on the spot all the time. I like doing that to him. But anyways, just follow Jerry on social. Again, the links after the show. And with that, I guess we'll wrap it up. I just want to say, hey, thanks, Jerry, for coming through and being on the show.
Thanks for having me on, man. And
for those wondering, I didn't even say anything about it. I feel bad. I should have let off with it.
Where's Mike?
So, Mike,
I'm the new Mike.
Right. New Mike. He's the Westside
without a 360 camera.
Right. We've got the East Side Mike. Now we got the Westside Mike. So Mike is in Atlanta. His day job, he's talked about it on the show quite a bit, what he does. He's organizing a humongous event for his work. And it's actually organized and being held at the hotel that the attendees of our Atlanta workshop are going to be staying at. So he's almost doing like work, and he's doing recon down there for us as well, kind of setting the stage for our workshop that's coming up here in a few weeks. And that's about it. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks. And thanks for tuning in. And thanks again, Jerry, for coming on and being the other Mike, the Lighthouse Mike.
I could never be the other Mike. There's only one Mike.
So like I said, we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Again, follow up on the show notes where all Jerry's information will show up probably in the next, we'll say 10 or 15 minutes. You guys take care, and I'll see you later.
See you.